This year is the 10th anniversary since I started journaling consistently. Now, I have gone through many different ways of journaling. I began using this Quo Vadis notebook, and it was more of a kind of bullet journal, but it was a way to get started. But then I progressed and I started moving into using different types of notebooks. Now, I've always had a bit of an issue with notebooks because I'm a fountain pen user. And this is simply because I was never graduated to ball pen. I started with pencil when I was in kindergarten. I was then allowed, when I moved to, I think it was primary school, to use fountain pens. But my handwriting never got good enough for me to be permitted to use a ball pen. Now, once we got to middle school, we'd choose whatever writing implement we wanted to, but I was so used to by then writing in fountain pen and pencil that I never really became comfortable with ball pens. So I've always been a fountain pen user. Now, over the course of the last 10 years, I have used many different journals. As I say, my starting point was this Quo Vadis notebook. But then I soon graduated to, I wanted something a little bit more permanent, a little bit more substantial. And that is because of a very important reason why we would journal. Now, one of the reasons why I started journaling in the first place was simply because I was inspired by people like Samuel Pepys, Charles Darwin, and Isaac Newton. We have their notebooks, we have their journals, and these go back hundreds of years, and they are now in the public domain. Now, Charles Darwin, Isaac Newton, and Samuel Pepys, died many years ago, but we have their thoughts, we have their ideas, we have their beautiful notebooks, and I've always been inspired by that. So my thinking when I'm writing a journal is maybe sometime in the future, maybe in 100 years or 200 years or 300 years, my journals will be on public display. Now, I will be long gone. It's not going to be embarrassing, so I don't need to worry about what I write now. If you really want to see some embarrassing journals, read Samuel Pepys. I mean, that guy was up to a lot of no good in his life, and we have it all documented. But it's fun, it's great to see how people used to live. And in a way, I am keeping a record of how we live today, or how I live today, and that might be something that will be useful in the future. I don't know. Maybe they'll get destroyed in a fire, but if I'm gone, it doesn't really matter. One thing I do know, though, is in 200 years' time, anything you've written digitally today will not be accessible. It will have disappeared. I can promise you that now, because technology moves so fast. Anyway, back to my favorite journals, and it has been a bit of a journey over the last 3 or 4 years that I have experimented with many different journals, but the most important thing is the journal I use has to have two things. They have to have robust quality so that they're not going to fall apart. The paper has to be really good, and it has to write well with a fountain pen. So my first proper journal was these journals from Galaxy Leather. Now, these are the same notebooks that I got the idea from Robin Sharma. Robin Sharma swears by these journals. He carries these with him everywhere he goes. Now, this is when I really started getting serious about my journal writing, and it started to become much more than just a list of the stuff that I do. I actually started writing a lot about my thoughts and feelings, and I wrote them into these journals, and it was absolutely fantastic. I also kept what my focus was for the day. My 2 objectives for the day were. So these were the 2 things that absolutely must be done on that day. And I've written all sorts, like here I was learning Korean. I'm always learning Korean. And I was writing out some practice sentences on Post-it notes, and I just stuck them into here. I also visited Hong Kong in, it looks like September of that year, and I have my metro tickets here and a photograph of the person I met. And all these were actually kept just in here, and I can keep all sorts of like little knickknacks that I've picked up, concert tickets and so on and so forth. And these journals are great. I have a number of them. They are leather bound, so they're leather outer, and they are really robust. Unfortunately, they're not particularly fountain pen friendly. So if you are using them with a fountain pen, you do need to use an extra fine nib because that will give you a medium line. For those of you using fountain pens, you will understand. And there is a little bit of bleeding, which is a fountain pen speak for seeing the ink of coming through to the other page. So it's called ghosting. And you can, whatever you write on one page, if you turn the page over, you can see your writing. The ink basically bleeds through the paper. So it's not very good fountain pen friendly paper. But then I moved on to something else. Now, about 15 years ago, I was gifted a Hermes, if you want to give it some correct pronunciation, Ulysse MM notebooks. This is the larger version of their notebook series, which is Ulysse. This leather cover is absolutely gorgeous. It's soft and it has just a simple clasp folder. Now, I used to use this to keep my what I would call my teaching notes. I would always have this on my desk, and I used this notebook for years and years and years while I was teaching English. Now, the thing about these Ulysses notebooks is once you've paid an absolute fortune for the leather cover, and I mean fortune because they're about $500 just for the leather cover, although I think when you do buy the leather cover, you do get one refill. You can then buy the refills. So the refills fit into the notebook at the back of the page, and you just clip it in. Now, the thing is, the refills are not cheap either, but the nice thing about the refills is they come in a Hermes box. So when you open up the box, and I'll just open up this box, you get the refill in here. So I've got here, I put some post-it notes in here for when I was writing, and I put all my journal in here. Now, it's got a nice plastic cover so that it's protected, but once you've finished and once you've written your journal, you can put it back into the box and close the box, and now I have my journal in a protected cover. This is what happens when you start going into the extremes of expense for writing notebooks. However, I should say the paper quality of the Hermes Ulysse notebooks is outstanding. They are soft, it's slightly rough, and I do like a little bit of rough because I like to feel that feedback in my fountain pen. And they are just gorgeous. They are really, really nice. So I have a number of these Hermes notebooks, and they are genuinely really, really nice. But I would say probably prohibitively expensive. Next up, I actually went to Baronfig. Now, Baronfig do a notebook called the Confidant. Now, the Confidant looks outstanding. I mean, they look beautiful. They have these wonderful hardback covers. The good thing about these is they also come in like a BE5, which is my favorite size of notebook, particularly for writing journals. And in here, I kept this one. Oh, wow, this one was, I mean, reasonably fountain pen friendly, not great, but reasonably. Again, if you're using a fine or ultra fine nib, absolutely fantastic. And I did really enjoy writing in this notebook, and I've kept all sorts. I got a real letter, and I put that in here. I mean, I've kept a lot of stuff in here. And I also keep like my morning routine checklist. I'm not going to show you close up because there's a lot of maybe personal stuff in here. I'm not dead yet, you know. But I also keep like my track of my exercise in here. So that's all in there, exercise. And this is just a place where I go every morning when I wake up, and I just go through writing these journals. Now, these Baronfig notebooks are fantastic. And they come in a box. So you get this box, which you can put the notebook in. And you've got a protective cover. And again, what you're thinking about is maybe in a year, in 100 years or 200 years, this book is still going to be as it is today because I protected it in its box. However, the problem with Baronfig is these will be out of stock. They may still be out of stock for these plus size notebooks. They may be in stock now, I don't know. But anyway, I waited 6 months to get another one of these. It never came back into stock. So eventually I gave up, which is actually why I went back to using Hermes notebooks, thinking, well, it's $100 roughly for a refill every 6 months. I suppose this is a journal. It's an important notebook in my world. So it's something I'm using every day. Okay, I have to invest $100 every 6 months for a new notebook. However, toward the end of last year, I came across a stationer called Smithson. Now, Smithson is a London-based stationer, and they do some amazing paper. Now, if you watched my video from last week, you will know that I accidentally on purpose discovered Smithson notebooks, and I discovered the amazing paper they use. So in their end of year sale, I bought myself a notebook. I think this is the Panama notebook. It has the same paper, and again, it comes in a gorgeous box. So when I actually opened up this, I was just like absolutely amazed. I mean, this is tied in a bow and it has paper. But what I wanted to do is just looking at this notebook. Now, if you compare this size, this is actually quite a large notebook. I don't have any A5 to compare it here with, but it has the blue paper. The line is very wide, but the quality of this paper is just outstanding. Now, in all my journals, I write a quotation from Alan Watts, and I always write it in there because it gives me a reminder that life is to be lived. The opening line is, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It's so plain and simple. And yet everybody runs around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. And I love this quote, and I write it on the first page of all my journals, which I have done here. And this is going to be my journal when the current Hermes has filled up. Now, I'm very lucky. I did buy this in the sale. These are, and I just have to remind myself, this is the Portobello notebook. It's the slightly larger version. I think they call it the medium because they do an A4 size. It's got this gorgeous cross-grain leather on the front. I know you can't feel this, but because the way that Smithson do their papers, they are very, very thin papers, very similar to the thinness of Tomorrow River paper. If you're a fountain pen user, you will know all about Tomorrow River paper. But the construction is just impeccable. The quality, the smell of the leather, everything is just perfect. And for a journal, this is absolutely perfect for me. It's perfect size, it's fountain pen friendly, and the paper is so thin that this has actually got 190 sheets in it, which by my calculation, one of these will last a whole year because I write basically 1 page a day. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting into using that one. Roughly my calculation will be, I will be using this by the end of February or midway through February, but there's continuity. But I also love the fact that I've got these boxes as well, because they sit perfectly on my bookshelf. And so I have my journal entries. And I have to be honest, it's been a journey. It's been a fantastic journey exploring papers, exploring notebooks. Now, I know I've spent a lot of money. These are very expensive. If you go to their website, you're going to be paying about $200 for one of these. But it's going to last me a year. Whereas the Hermes, which costs $100 for the refill, and I'd be refilling it twice a year, it's the same price ultimately. But like I said at the beginning, I'm writing my journals so that they are readable in 200, 300, 400 years' time. We have Isaac Newton's journals. We have Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. These have lasted hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, as I say, I don't think I'm writing anything interesting, but it will give people in 200, 300 years' time a snapshot of life as it is today. And that's why I just love writing my journal every morning. It's more of a story about what I've done, who I've met. Yesterday, for example, we set off to go to visit my wife's grandparents. The snow at the top of the mountains was just impassable. I mean, I probably could have done it because I do have an SUV, but the other drivers were just, oh no. And I wrote about that this morning. It was great. And I do absolutely love writing my journal every morning. It's something that I just actually get excited about, waking up in the morning saying, yes, I can go and write my journal. And that's what writing a journal should be. It's something you should be excited about every morning. Now, some days I only write half a page. Other days I've got so much on my mind that I might write 2 pages. But on the whole, it works out to round about a page a day. I also track my exercise in there, and I also keep a little checklist of my morning routines. And that's about it. So there you go. That's my journaling journey. I have found the ultimate journal, which is the Portobello notebook by Smithson. Don't go there, it is very expensive. But like I say, I don't think journals are something you should compromise on cost. You're looking for solid construction, good quality paper, and so that you can write, and they will be available for our future people to be able to look back and read and just say, wow, what a life these people had. Well, that's what I'm hoping for anyway. Now, if you want to learn more about all the other notebooks that I tested last year, then this video up here is the one to watch next.